Hi everybody, I'm here today to talk to you about another teaching strategy, and this strategy is called embedded learning. So the idea of embedded learning is that I am taking everyday activities that my child is already engaged in and already enjoys doing, and using that as the opportunity for me to teach them a new skill instead of setting up something separate or different from what they would already want to engage with and trying to teach them in that way. Sometimes it's helpful to have something discrete and separate from your normal day-to-day activities as a way to help a child learn. But a lot of the time, the most helpful way for a child to learn something is for them to already be engaged, to be doing something that they like, playing with toys, and for them to start to learn and start to be introduced to a new skill in that way. So what this could look like in an everyday routine might be that your child's sitting and playing with blocks, and you start identifying the blocks by different colors. So I might say, hey, could you hand me the blue block? And then they would, if they knew what the blue block was, they would hand it to me. But if they didn't know what it was, I would start pointing out, oh, this is a blue block. Oh, look, here's another blue block over here. And here's another blue block. Different. The idea of embedded learning is a little bit different from incidental teaching. A lot of people sort of confuse those two terms or those two ideas. And embedded learning is something we're really setting up ahead of time. I know that my child's going to be engaged in this activity. My child or my student is engaged in this activity. I know that they really like doing this, and I know that it will fit well with a goal that I'm working on. Versus incidental teaching, that's where, oh, I'm playing with you, we're engaged in something, and the opportunity presents itself for me to maybe work on turn taking or to count. And that's great. That's still a very valid way of teaching, but it's different than the idea of embedded learning. So I know a lot of parents worry about, oh, maybe I don't know all the things that my child should be working on, or maybe I'm missing some critical life skills that I don't know that I should teach my child. And so I want to give you a few ways to figure out what you could potentially be working on. So none of this is meant to put pressure on you. If this is not where you're at personally and you're not ready to work on these things, don't worry about it. Just being there and interacting with your child is plenty. But if you are a parent who wants to make sure that you have some extra teaching involved in your day-to-day activities, this is a way to do it. The first way that I suggest that you determine goals is to just look at any communication that you have from your child's classroom teacher. So that might mean reading classroom newsletters about what they are doing in the classroom during the school year. You can absolutely just reach out to your classroom teacher and ask them, like, hey, do you have anything that you can share with me as far as like a sequence of what you were planning to work on this year, or maybe just some general ideas because you know my child. What are Another thing that you can do is, if your child's receiving special education services, you can use their IEP goals, their individualized education plan goals, to choose some things to work on. Don't worry about doing all of it. Don't worry about focusing on all the goals. Maybe just pick one or two. If you don't have a copy of your child's IEP, or you just can't find it because of the chaos of life that has been going on lately, reach out to the teacher and ask them to email you a copy. I'm sure that they would be happy to do that. Another thing that they could do for you is to talk about with you personally about some ways that you could work on that goal at home, because it might take. So 2 resources that I really love to look to as far as what some developmental guidelines are. The first is the Washington State Early Learning and Development Guidelines, is the name of it. I'll put a link down below in the description so that you can get right to it. It's a little bit tricky to find online unless you type in those exact words. So this comes in both English and Spanish, and it goes from birth, I think, up through 3rd grade. And it covers all the developmental domains and talks about some typical things that you might see at different ages, and then some ideas of what you could be working on with your child. So that's a really great resource. Another one that you can look to is the CDC's Developmental Milestones. They have a website, and then they also have a free app that you can go on and just answer questions, and it will tell you if your child's meeting those milestones. So those are two, and then it also has a part where you can go to in the app that has tips and ideas for things to do with your child at home. So 2 really great resources. All right, so going back to the idea of you setting up some embedded learning opportunities for your child, first and foremost, I want you to know that you do not have to come up with any sort of special activity. Like I said before, this is something that's ongoing in your day. So I'm going to, in a part 2 for embedded learning, show you an example of me making banana bread with my son. This was something that we were going to do. We've done it several times, several different cooking activities, and he's made banana bread with me before, so he knows a lot of the steps already. It's something that he really wants to do, so it's motivating all on its own for him to be there. And it's just a natural part of our family life is to do some of these cooking activities together. So I didn't set up something special just for working on these goals. I didn't come up with some sort of like complex, fancy Pinterest activity. It was just something that we were going to do anyways. And so ahead of time, I knew that I wanted to work on 3 things. The first thing was health and safety. So like he obviously, because of our current life, I really have focused a lot on hand washing, making sure that he's washing his hands for a good long amount of time, and that he's getting better at using the pump for the soap by himself. So that was one thing that I knew I wanted to do before we started the banana bread. The second thing was I knew that I wanted to focus on counting, and I knew that we would be doing multiple scoops. I knew that we would be counting during hand washing. I knew that we would be counting the number of bananas that we were going to use. So I had that opportunity to work on counting. And then another thing that I'm focused on for him right now is understanding our relationship to other people in our family and some of our family culture. And I knew that making banana bread was going to give me a little bit of an opportunity to talk about that with him. Having a real in-depth back and forth about culture and family isn't something that he can do right now as a 2-year-old. But in this context, when he was already focused on banana bread and making banana bread, I was able to pull in some of these ideas that like, oh, this isn't something that just we do. It's something that other people in our family do too. And obviously, like, banana bread isn't specific to our family or culture, but it is something that we do as a family. And so it starts to help me build that idea of like, our family does certain things, and then in the future I can compare and contrast how that's different from other families, and that other people have cultures and things that they're doing in their families too. And so it's a starting point for us. However, because of incidental teaching, I was able to do a lot more. And so I'm going to read off just some of the things that we actually were able to hit on while we were making banana bread. So like I said, we did counting, personal care, health and safety. We did following directions. Like I said, we talked about our family culture. We did some turn taking and sharing. We talked about emotions in ourself and in others. Some of the emotions words we used were happy, loved, kind, mad, frustrated, calm. We were learning the sequence of events. So first we're going to mash, then we're going to add flour, that sort of thing. We were also able to start working on the idea that print is something that gives us information. So you can see where I'm like pointing to the directions and pointing to the words. I talked about the label sugar, and he identified a letter within the word sugar. We were working on our gross and fine motor skills. We worked on letter ID. We worked on opposites like fast and slow and spicy and sweet. There was some problem solving and persistence where he was getting frustrated or like figuring out where things were, or asking for help. And so there was just lots and lots that we were able to focus on just within this one activity. If you haven't had a chance to watch my video about using the teaching loop, go ahead and watch that too, because that'll give you some idea about how you can sort of form the way that you're providing instruction. But again, the most important thing above all else is just that you are there and participating in an activity with your child. And really, if that's all that happens, that is a success for the day. So go watch part 2 and let me know if you have any questions. I would love to answer them for you. All right, bye-bye.